Good morning, good morning, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Ask Sharifah videocast and podcast. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and I have an incredible guest for you today. You have seen him before. He was a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show. We didn't have enough time to go in depth in his story, so we are bringing him here today to find out a little bit more about his journey and who he is. But one of the things that he will definitely tell you is that he's been doing what he's doing since he was 7 years old. He was a dyslexic kid. At first, he believed the lie that he was stupid and would never be able to achieve anything. But then he discovered that he had the superpower of encouragement. He has used that superpower to help create insight and breakthroughs for hundreds of people to take their life and their business to the next level. Please help me welcome Mr. Scott Ballard. Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm great, and it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation today, Sharifah. So this is exciting.
I am as well, and I'm sure our audience is. So as always, I invite you to go ahead and share the show because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah videocast. Now, Scott, what stood out to me, and what probably stood out to a lot of people, is that people told you or made you feel like you were stupid when you were 7, but you just did things a little bit differently. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small rural town in Oregon, and at that time in the 60s, Sharifah, when I went to school, I had no idea, but when I went to school, I realized after a couple of months that I was not learning like the other kids. And at that point in education, the teacher would come at the beginning of the year and the end of the year to your home for dinner and then talk about how you're doing in school. So when my teacher came in the fall, after a couple of months, she was saying, you know, I wasn't learning as fast, I wasn't doing it. And she suggested I work harder. My parents were like, okay, you've got to focus. I did that, but it just got worse. And then my teacher did something that really changed my whole life. And it's terrible, but it's actually made me the person I am today. And she actually took my desk and took me and sat me in the corner in the back of the class and told me that I was stupid and that I would never become anything in my life.
That was harsh.
That was harsh for a 7-year-old. And you know, that was a person of authority and respect in my life. So I kind of took that on. I believed her because she was my teacher. And so out of that, I spiraled into depression, suicidal thoughts, and just a lot of darkness in the sense of, man, why am I here if I don't have any purpose, if I never can do or be anything? And so that experience allowed this to happen, though, Sharifah, which is so interesting to me as I look back. I couldn't see any value in myself, Sharifah, but I could see it in you. So my classmates, my friends, my family, even the teachers, I could see the greatness in them. I could see their superpower. I could see their genius. And so I would point that out to them. And I would go like, you know, you're really great at doing this, or you're really good at math, or you're really good at whatever. But I couldn't see it myself because I believed the lie that she told me that I was never going to be anything. But in that, I had this super strength to see, you know, maybe I can't be anything, but Sharif is going to change the world. You know, she's going to be a leader in California in politics, and she's going to do all of these things and you know, make a difference. I could see that instantly when I met people, even adults. I would sit with adults, and I remember my mom going, man, you just want to talk to all these people. And I was like, yeah, because I can see the greatness and I could help them discover it for themselves. So that's how that all came out, being almost a two-edged sword. Like, it was super painful for me to the point of trying to kill myself at 7, 8 years of age, but also it was this dawning of this ability to help other people discover, build on, and become all that they could become.
Mhm.
So that's how the journey began. And it's so bizarre. But I love to share it with people because I find everybody has a story like that and can relate to that from that standpoint. So that's how it all started.
Wow, that is so powerful. It seems like a blessing and a curse. So the blessing was what you were able to see and help other people do, but the curse was you felt stupid. Now, did you go through a phase where you felt like, okay, if I study harder, if I work harder, if I do all these extra lessons, then I won't be stupid? Did you go through all these thought patterns that it was you and you weren't working hard enough?
Yeah, Sharifah, it's interesting. My parents hired a tutor for me, and she tutored me every day except for like Christmas and Easter to learn how to read and write, just enough so I could pass to the next grade. But I never felt like I was going to be able to excel in the school, in the educational system. My brain is just not wired that way. I
Mhm.
mean, I was seeing what other people weren't seeing. And I was connecting dots to things that other people didn't connect. And it didn't fit into the public school system at that time because
Mhm.
there was one way of learning and, advancing. I mean, that was, in the 60s and 70s, there wasn't all the options there is today. So I just had to get the D to get to the next grade. That was my goal. This is like whatever the minimum, but I never believed, or I never thought, looking back, this is a great question. Nobody's asked me this. I never thought that education or that I would be able to excel in that lane. It
Mhm.
just wasn't the way I was put together.
Mhm.
And I think I knew that, like, the second time I did first grade, they made me come back and do it again, which was a horrific mistake for them. And for me, I just knew that, okay, I just have to, with my tutor and the best I can, I just have to pass. And I've only got 13 more years of this.
Mhm.
Like, I literally would check off the days of, like, I just want to get out of here because this is like prison to my
Yes.
soul, because I
Yes.
couldn't express who I was. I couldn't be who I was. And it wasn't champion because I was never going to be the valedictorian. I
Mhm.
just wasn't. I mean, I'm not, so I had to find other ways to express it. And I built people up. I became very good at sports. I could see the strength in my teammates. Um, and I just became this really deeply encouraging, positive person out of my own pain of knowing it hurts a lot when somebody says mean and terrible things to you. It's super painful. Like, I get that in our culture, in our world today, like, the words are so damaging. And so I really made it my mission to go, I want to be encouraging, and I want to just believe in people for who they are and what they can be, and the goodness that they bring to the world. So I
That's
just never,
wonderful.
Sharifah, I never got there. But thank you for the question. That's a great question. Yeah.
Thank you. I do try because I'm just nosy, inquisitive. I like to know what people are thinking and what's going on in their mind. But when you talk about the D to just pass, I can completely relate because the funny story in our family, it's three of us, three kids. My brother's the oldest, then myself, and then my sister's the youngest. And my brother speaks 5 different languages. My
Wow.
brother was always over a 4.0. But in my, little Sharifah mind, my brother had absolutely no fun. All he did was study. Everything was about school and work and education. And my sister always just wanted to have fun. And so I'm, again, the middle child, and I'm in between. And so I kind of said, look, without studying, I can get at least a C. If I study a little bit, I can pull a B. So that was always my thing. I never wanted to study too much, but then I also wanted to study just enough so that I can pass and I can get by. So I can relate to that idea of let me just get through here.
Yeah, and it kind of became one of those survival kind of mindsets. And as I grew through school, I learned how to navigate to get passing grades, not in the academic sense, but with always being respectful of my teachers, never being in trouble, always following the rules, showing up in the right way. And I really learned people skills that have so helped me in my business life. There's an old book, I don't know if people read it anymore, but when I was very young, somebody gave me the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now,
Yes.
it took me like a year to read the book because I could only read a little bit, but I so resonated with that because it was a tool for me in order to work in a system where I didn't belong, but to help me navigate it. And I learned powerful ways of encouraging people, respecting them, listening to them deeply is such a respectful thing. And Sharifah, you do this so well. Like, this is like a gift you have. You're great at questions. You're great at actively listening. That's a lost art in our world today. I learned that as a young person, as a way for me to navigate these situations, particularly with adults that were, people of respect and honor in my life. It was important to me to learn that and to do that. So there's a shout out to an old book that I don't even know if people read anymore, but
I'm pretty sure they do, because I've read that book. I completely understand what you're saying. But do you feel emotionally that you developed that as a coping mechanism for you to get through life? And do you feel that you still use that in 2020, 21 in your life?
yeah, 100%. Because here's the reality that I learned is that all of life is based on relationship. And
Mhm.
relationship really only has two outcomes, a good outcome and a bad outcome. So the first time we talked when we met, we had a good outcome. So I said to myself, I want to have more relationship, more conversation, add more value to what Sharif is doing because we had a good exchange, right? And so I think that it was a coping tool. And I think now it's become kind of like my secret weapon.
Mhm.
Like, I still send handwritten thank you cards to people. Like, I still send a gift. Like, I feel like I'm so old school. I'm 61. I'm like, I'm doing these old things. And it's like, and people are, I mean, I'm always shocked. I have a whole wall here of thank yous from people all over the world. I'm always shocked when I send somebody something, a note or something that I know is meaningful to them. Their response is like, well, but it is of tremendous value because I am hearing them, I'm respecting them, I'm listening to what they're really saying. And yeah, no, it's coping, and now it's become this superpower, and it's allowed me access to people and places and things, Sharifah, I never dreamed as a 7-year-old I would ever be able to do or be. And I have had all that life and so much more than I could have ever anticipated.
Yes, that's beautiful though. I was corresponding with your beautiful wife the other day. It's like now your life is so much different. And you mentioned that you even either thought about or attempted suicide at 7 or 8. Was
Yeah.
part of that the bullying or just not imagining that life could ever be as great as it is?
I think it's all of that and more, Sharifah. It's really incomprehensible at 7 or 8 years of age. And I know it's a huge issue now. So it started with my teacher, but then it became the other students saw her behavior towards me. And so it kind of compounded. And, you know, it spirals down so fast. And at 7 or 8, I didn't have the coping skills. I didn't even know how to fully express that to my mom and my dad, my grandmother, which helped raise me. And, my parents were awesome. I want people to hear that. My parents were the most loving, wonderful people ever, but they didn't know, like, so they didn't know what to do. They didn't understand it either. So yeah, I mean, the thoughts of that, I still at times I'm awakened to the darkness of what that felt like, no hope. Wow. And we've learned that the last couple of years. No hope is not a place where you want people to go to,
Mhm.
right? So understanding that hopelessness, I've really made it my mission. And you said earlier, people call me all the time. They're like, you're the most encouraging person I've ever met, or I've ever worked with, or I've ever known. And that comes out of that despair of suicide.
Mhm.
And I had people like my mother and my father and my grandmother, particularly. She's this little 4'11" Irish woman. And she would say to me, Scotty, God has a great plan for your life. There's
Mm.
hope for you. Just hang in there. And she would say this over and over. And I had, my tutor, Mrs. Slaymaker, she would repeat over and over to me. She goes, there's something. You're here for a reason. There's a purpose. And so, yeah, so that too is a two-edged sword, Sharifah, like you were saying earlier, that there is a really terrible side to that, but there was also the side where people poured into me and
Mhm.
believed in me in a way that now I get to do to hundreds and thousands of people in our business now. Through the Dream Employee, we encourage, we believe in, we support these employees that work for our clients, our business owners, in their daily life. And we see the difference. We got an email yesterday from a young lady. She was like, your support and your belief in me to get my next degree, my CNA, I'm sitting here crying out of joy that you really care.
Mhm.
I get the power of that, Sharifah. I get that changes the world one person at a time. I know that's why I'm here today. Because people, even though everybody said that I was nothing, everybody of authority, of education, there were people that said, well, no, there's a reason you're here for this time and place.
Mhm.
It's like you doing what you've done, your journey you've been on, and now where you're going to even be your bigger influence. Like, we need people to be all of that,
Mhm.
but they need us to believe in them. And they
Yes.
just, I tell my clients all the time, I will be the one person that walks in when everybody walks out of your life.
I
Because I
like
know
that.
what it's like when everybody walks out, Sharifah.
Yes.
It's real for me. And I want to walk in and I want to encourage them and I want to stand with them and I want to point out to them, here's what you've forgotten. You have this gift. You have this ability. You can do these things. And we can
Yes.
stand brave together, hand in hand, and move forward, make a difference.
I love that. That is so powerful. And I'm resonating with everything that you're saying. Especially one of the things that I tell my client is that I am your biggest cheerleader. That's
Yeah.
what I'm here to do, is to be your cheerleader. Because often as entrepreneurs, we do not have the support system around us. I remember when I built my first website in 1994, there were people around me who told me I was lazy. I have a website, but I'm lazy. But in their minds, because it's 1994, if you don't go out to a job or you don't have a 9 to 5 or you don't work with someone else, then obviously you don't want to work. But I knew then that the internet was the only way for me to be the one thing I've always wanted to be, and that's a stay-at-home mom, and to be able to have the income I needed to take care of my family. But often with entrepreneurs, it's the people around them that say, go get a day job, quit that little hustle, you'll never be anything, and they put people down. So as a business consultant, one of the things I do is just support them in knowing that whatever they desire, they can completely achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said something at the beginning, Sharifah, that I think we should take a moment and talk about and really bring out that I don't think, I think everybody thinks it's just them. And that's this thing that you said about being lonely. It
Yes.
is the loneliest work in the world, being an entrepreneur. Okay. So who am I going to talk to when the sale, I don't get the sale? Who am I going to talk to when something goes wrong with a customer? Who am I going to talk to about this big vision I have, but I don't have the capital for it? Who am I going to talk to about when I'm afraid and I don't know what to do?
Right.
Who am I going to talk to when I have all these doubt and fear when I wake up in the middle of the night at 3:15 in the morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, can I do this?
Right.
I mean, is this ever going to work? I've been doing this for 7 years. Am I ever going to get over the hump?
Right.
Like, who understands? Who can believe in me? Who can I share this with safely? Where's the safe zone? Where's the person that's been there, done that, and is on the other side? I will tell you the number one thing I've seen in my 41 years of being in business with entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, serving them, is the loneliness.
Yes.
You nailed it, Sharifah. It is your audience. Their biggest battle every day is not the budget, it's not the employees, it's not the marketing, it's not the branding, it's not the new market. It is in their own mind, and I'm alone, and I'm not worthy, or I don't know if I believe I can do this, and how do I keep going? And am I enough, Sharifah? I had a client the other day say that to me. Huge construction company, and he said to me, he goes, I'm not sure if I'm enough to do this. And he just landed the biggest contract he had ever had.
Yes.
And his self-doubt just was going crazy. It was off the charts. And so we spent an hour, and I just thought, okay, so let's talk about that.
Yes.
And let's build you up. And you are enough. And here are all the reasons why. So let's look back to the history of all you've done to get here. So you have that strength. You have that ability, right? You are enough. You just need somebody to reflect it back to you, to stand with you. I have no doubt. I said, I will be the least surprised person in the world when you have the biggest construction company in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have no doubt. I'll be sitting in that ceremony, that celebration, and I'll be sitting there going, yeah, I saw that 5 years ago.
Right.
This is what my life experience, the difficulties at such a young age, the depression, the harshness of people telling me I wouldn't be. This is what has created in me, is this muscle, so to speak. They call me the confidence coach because I have enough confidence for you and all of your people.
Yes.
Like, I can carry you. Like, I can go so far, so deep. I can go up a hill for 10 years because I had to do it.
Right.
Right. So just get on. Let's go. And
Right.
pretty soon you'll be walking. Pretty soon you're going to be stronger. And pretty soon you're going to be encouraged. And pretty soon you're going to do that thing that you were put here to do, to change the world, to make a difference, to add value, to make people's lives better. All these things.
Yes.
No, it's true, because me, in the worst case start of anybody's life, I mean, I had a terrible start to life, and I look now and I go, look at what happened. Mm-hmm. What's possible, Sharifah? What's possible for Sharifah?
Endless possibilities.
Endless.
Yes.
Endless. All you need is the support and the encouragement, the love, the belief in you.
Yes.
And that's
I
what
agree.
we're here to do. That's what we're here to do.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, that's our.
I had a guest on this morning on the Roundtable Talk Show, and it was so interesting because she made handcrafted items. She made bloomers and different things by hand. She would sew them by hand, and she got so good that she was featured on QVC as a small business to look out for. And it just so happened that one of the other guests loves QVC, saw her on QVC, recognized the logo, and was mildly impressed. But the guest who had this sewing business we talked about expansion and growing, and she didn't know, because she said she had to have control of her business. And it kind of blew me away. I was like, you've done all this, you've gotten to QVC, and I guarantee you there are millions of people who will never grace QVC, and you're thinking about control and how you won't be able to grow unless you have control. So it's just interesting, sometimes our thought processes and our mindsets that really keep us from growing and expanding and being all that we can be.
I call that the limiting belief lie that we're holding. And sometimes, Sharifah, I think for us, and we see this all the time, we don't realize we're holding because it's a blind spot for us.
Right.
Right? We don't. So So that's where we come in. You come in and you can help them see that blind spot, that limiting belief, and remove that that ceiling that they've put on themselves, what they can do, who they can be, where they can go, QVC, whatever, and we can do work around that. And this is where I get excited when I'm with a client, when they have this moment of insight where they're like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't see that. I wasn't, and it's a breakthrough, and it's a transformation, which is insight is working in here to make a difference out there. So the deep work really is in this head, in our brain, in our soul, in our spirit, to go forward. And we have to do that work. We have to have these conversations. I love to ask people questions that invoke that give them the mirror, and they go, I'm in my own way. And you see this all the time, because we've talked about it. Like, the obstacle, the enemy's not out there.
Right.
When I was 7 years old, even though I thought the enemy was my teacher and all these people that were, telling me I couldn't be anything, actually, it was right here. The 9 inches from my mind to my heart, like that journey was where the battle, really was fought. Luckily, I had people around me, enough people to change the balance from negative to positive, to the lie, from the lie to the truth, so to speak. And then at 18, I got to tell this, Sharifah, because you know my wife at 18, her name is Orlina. At 18, so we graduated from high school and I got a diploma. So I always say that to people, because people hear my story and they go, well, you didn't graduate. I really did. I checked when they gave it to me, but I did. But at 18, right after graduation, I met this young woman, Orlina. We went to the high school together, but I didn't know her. She was like valedictorian and I wasn't. So we didn't hang around with the same people. But
okay, I just want to cut you off real quick. I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. So the valedictorian winds up with the guy that everyone labels stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, this is life. This is the real world. You can't make this stuff up.
This is real world, right? So a month later, we're done. We're at this graduation party, and I'm sitting there, drinking my country time lemonade, which I was famous for, which I loved. And she was sitting there, and I think she was reading the paper. And there was a bunch of people at this party that we graduated with. And I never really talked to her because I was not in any of the same classes. I didn't run in any of the same circles, And so we're talking, and then I say to her, I said, well, would you like a ride home? Because I'm going to leave. I'm going to go home. It's getting late. I got to work tomorrow. And so I give her a ride home. That's where this connection starts. We start dating. And so this June we'll have been dating 43 years, and we'll be married 40 years, March 28th. But
congratulations.
But the best part about that is I left my mom and dad's house at 18. They had done everything they could do for me. And I met this young lady, and here's the power of somebody believing you. She has believed in me. She has never spoken an ill word towards me, never said anything bad to anybody else about me, and encouraged me in all of my failures in 20s and 30s in business and everything, to the point now where I've become this person to believe, okay, I can do whatever I set my mind to do. Just having one person like that in your life, Sharifah, changes everything. And I just want to give her credit, because our anniversary of 40th is coming March 28th. And I just want to tell people, you could be that person for somebody, and then you need to find that person that can be that for you. Like, that is the handoff between my parents to her, to that relation, that the timing of that, when I look back now, I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
It was the right time. Right time.
And it was perfect. And it was like, I had never really had a girlfriend because I wasn't very confident in high school. And boom, I knew, and this freaks people out because we've been together so long, we got married so young, but I knew within 2 or 3 weeks that I loved her and that eventually she was going to be my wife.
Oh, wow. That is beautiful. But she has a wonderful spirit. Let me just say that, because we were emailing the other day and corresponding, and I was doing 12 million things at one time. And she had her name in the signature, and I kept calling her Scott. And I was like, Scott, do this, Scott, do this. And so finally I said, wait a minute, this is Orlena you're talking to. So I said, Orlena, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't even acknowledge you. And her spirit is so humble. She wrote back and she says, don't worry about it. Scott and I are one.
Yep.
And I thought that was just so beautiful that she even said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, here's the thing that we do. We coach couples that are in business. That's one of the things that we do as together, because we've always worked together. Here's one of the things that I will say that needs to be a part of that is that when you find this person, don't just be the receiver, but also be the giver back to them, right? And that's what, you know, people say, well, gosh, it doesn't seem possible anymore to have a lifetime relationship. You know, like it's impossible. It's a limiting belief. And I'm like, well, no, but you have to do the work. Like we have to do the work, and we have to, first of all, have this commitment that like, we're going to do this for a lifetime. So we went to dinner the other day with all of our adult kids, and we told them that after 40 years now that they can take a sigh of relief, because we're gonna get really serious about being together. It was so funny. But anyway, it was just our way of saying that sure, there's difficult times, sure, all that, but it is worth the commitment to get the result, to have this in your life. And Sharifah, it's possible.
Yes.
That's the message I want to tell young people, young entrepreneurs, young business owners that are married. Maybe their wife or husband or whoever is in their business with them. Maybe they're not. Maybe they don't understand. It's possible, and you can do this. You can do it. You can do it.
It reminded me earlier, who said the expression, I have found the enemy and the enemy is me? Wasn't that a president or something?
Yes, maybe Kennedy or
Kennedy. I don't know. But when you were speaking, that's exactly what I thought of. It's like when you were talking about what's in your mind and right here. And it's, yes, I found the enemy and the enemy is me. And so we focus so much on your journey up to this point, Scott. And we're coming down to like the last few minutes. How did you get from there to where you are now? When were you diagnosed with dyslexia? How did you change your pattern? And how did someone who was thinking and considering suicide become a confidence coach?
Yeah, so I changed my pattern, not in a day, not in a moment, but in life. So I was diagnosed finally in grade school. But in the 60s, Sharifah, because you're diagnosed didn't really mean anything, because they didn't know what to do with you. They still didn't know how to help you. And I'm not saying that bad against them. I mean, nobody knew. Like, okay, you're dyslexic. Well, what does that mean? Like, how do I navigate this? So I got out of school, which was the big first step. I got out of school. I met Orlena, and then realizing that education was not going to be my future, like university, college, that was not going to be my future. I started doing businesses, and all in their 20s, I just failed business after business after business. And my wife, Orlena, would say over and over, she'd say, well, what did you learn and what can we do better next time? Now, this went on for almost 15 years. We had 3 kids. We're in a small rental house, $250 a month, 3 kids, small rental house. We had nothing. We were beyond broke. Okay.
Wow. Okay,
nothing. So finally, people in my life kept saying, have you ever thought about being in the insurance business? I'm like, no, I didn't know anybody and whatever. So finally, Orlena said, we should research this. So we researched it. We found out you had to go to school. You have to go take classes and then take a test. Well, I heard that, and immediately, where does my mind go?
Nope, not doing that.
It's not doing that. Well, through her loving kindness, she convinced me to do it. I did it. And miracle of all miracles, I passed the test the first time.
Oh, wow.
71 out of, you had to get 70 to get your license. I got my license. I went to work for a company, and within 3 months, I knew it was not the right company. It was a total disaster. And it was, and the policy was terrible, whatever. But in that, I had met a couple people and they'd heard of a company that had a good policy, got the contract, and at our kitchen table with $100, we started a business one more time, about the 15th time, in an industry we knew nothing about, had no education, no background in, knew nothing. And within 5 years, we were the third largest producer, seller of that product in 42 states across the US.
Wow.
And we had built a team. And the way I built the team, Sharifah, is what I learned when I was in grade school. I hired people, saw people for the genius that they had. I encouraged them. I gave them responsibility for it. I believed them. I left them alone to do their greatness. And I always told them, you can do more. You can do better at this. And we just flourished. We went from absolute poverty to making more money. I paid more in taxes the 5th year than I'd made my whole life.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. And I don't think I really caught up to it in my own confidence for years afterwards. So we did that for 21 years. We sold the company to a life insurance company. And then we started doing a lot of service work all throughout the world, Africa, India, Haiti. We would take and do service projects, build orphanages, do medical care, all these things. And on the 16-hour flights back, I'd always go, okay, God, what am I supposed to do now? Because I'm not a retired, I'm like you, Sharifah. I got to do something.
Right.
I got a million ideas. Like this is who I am. I'm not going to go play golf. I have no interest in any of that.
Right.
And so finally I came back one time and one of the guys that I'd worked with before that had been in the industry called me and said, man, I got a problem with my leadership team at my company. He said, would you talk to me about it? And so I did, and I helped him, and I helped another one, And I was just doing this for a couple of years, Sharifah, just for free. I didn't even know it was a business. Orlena picks me up at the airport one day, and she goes, you know what you're doing with David, that's actually a business, and people pay for that. And I go, oh, no, he's a friend. I'm just helping him. She goes, no, really, it is. You should call him and ask him if he has a budget for this. Well, I did. And long story short, he's like, where's your invoice? And I feel bad we haven't paid you. That's how I got into the coaching business, so to speak, and now what we do. And I loan my confidence, or I impart my confidence, and I build my confidence into people from my real life struggle experiences, failing fast, learning, growing, believing in that there is something in me of great value that I need to deliver to the world.
Yes, and you listen to your wife. I think let's not
really.
let's not gloss over that.
She gets all the credit, and it was her genius that saw, you know what, she knew me so well, Sharifah. She goes, if you can get over the hurdle of the schooling and the test, this is the insurance business is very people-centric. It's about relationships. Well, that's me. Now, I didn't see it in myself because I'd been a janitor for 7 years before that. Because I believed my first grade teacher, I believed my freshman teacher that said in our test that we had, what school and what occupation would you best be suited for out of 500? He's told me, you're the only student I've ever had that only qualifies to be one thing, and that's to be a custodian.
Oh, wow. And then you became a custodian?
And I did, because I started all these businesses and they'd failed. So there's no income. So I cleaned office buildings at night and cleaned up construction sites during the day. That's where I came out of to start another business, because somewhere in me, I knew that there was something great that was going to happen in my life.
When you were cleaning the offices and when you were being a custodian, are you one of those people that was cleaning and giving it your all, giving it your best, but you knew that this was temporary, that it was just something you had to do to get to the next level or the next step?
I'm being fully transparent here, Sharifah, and this is a question people haven't asked me, so thank you for asking it. There were days Yes, I believe that. I felt that. And then there were days and nights where I began to feel like I'm going to be doing this till I'm 65.
Mm.
And so my work schedule was this. So I would get up at 6 in the morning and I would go clean a construction site, a new office building, whatever. And then I'd come home and I'd eat dinner. And then at about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, I would go clean office buildings till 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
Mm.
So I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So I had good days, to be really honest with you, where I thought, okay, this is temporary and it's going to break and we're going to, something's going to happen. And there are times when I drove home at 4:30 in the morning to sleep for a couple hours before I went back out again, where I thought, okay, I'm stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do any good not to be honest about
Mm-hmm.
that's real. And I totally get that with everybody. So thank you for asking that.
You're welcome. I just wanted to know your mindset because I'm relating, and everything that you're saying really resonates with me. When I was doing an IPO and we were writing the business plan, which we later turned into the SEC filings, I was working for Sweat Equity in this company that we were building, and we later raised about $6 million for that round of funding. But because I wasn't receiving a paycheck until later, I was actually an Uber driver. So I would go drive as an Uber driver while I'm writing filings for the SEC. And so I'm driving, I'm like, they don't know who I am. And then I would be like, okay, well, who are you? I'm like, I don't know, but I know I'm not an Uber driver. That was like, I know this is not what I was put here on this earth to be.
Yeah, I think this is good for both of us, Sharifah, because there's such a common. So we talked earlier about being lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Sharifah, these are the conversations that our entrepreneur, all of our folks that are on this journey like we are, this is what they need.
Mm-hmm.
They need honest. They don't need hype. They don't need, you're going to be a gazillionaire tomorrow. They don't need that. What they need is to get through tomorrow when they're Ubering, taking people home from the airport at 2 a.m.
Right.
Right. That's what they need. They need to hear this then, what we're both saying, like the real truth about the journey, and not glorifying it in the sense of, oh, woe is me. And this was, it was so hard. But the real truth of it. And then how did we make another step forward today? You know what I'm saying? So I know a little bit about your story. So you just kept taking another step. This is what I love about you. Like, against all odds, you're my people. Like I tell people, like if your mom and dad left you $1 billion, I cannot relate to you. I can't.
Right.
Very poor family. I don't know what that means.
Right.
But if you have struggled, if you've scrubbed toilets for years and you still had a dream, you still had a goal, you still believe, I'm with you, I'm for you, I believe it, and I will turn myself inside out to see that become real for you. That is why I'm here. And I'm hoping I get to do this for another 35 years to see more of us get to the other side of that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I think that's powerful. And I completely agree. One of the things that I always say, kind of what you were saying, is that to a certain extent, when you receive that $1 billion, or your company, your parents invest the first 20,000 in your business or whatever, it's a lot easier, but I love working with creatives, people who can make something out of nothing. That's what I love working with. It's their creativity, their ingenuity that allows them to just create. One of the things that I love to tell people is that the word abracadabra is actually Yiddish. It means I create what I speak. And that means that you have the ability to create from nothing, to just make it appear from nowhere, because your words and your belief in yourself is so powerful. It's magic. That's what it becomes. But I always say magic and miracles, happen in the moment. So it's about what we do right now. So one of the things I want to talk about, Scott, and I actually planned on spending so much more time on this, is what is your ideal client? Who do you work with?
I think we just described them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the person that still knows, believes that there's more. Okay, so I was on a call with a guy in Ireland the other day, and he's had this business, but he's been stuck at this one level for years. And I had one conversation with him, and within 3 hours later, he signed the 2 biggest deals he's ever signed in his life. But Sharifah, all it was a simple insight that there was more for him, and that I was able to have him see it and then own it. And then he stepped into it in the sense of, okay, yes. And boom, within 3 hours, the 2 biggest deals he'd ever done in his life.
Wow.
That's where I want to meet people. That's the people I want to meet. That's the people I want to work with. That's the people that I want to deliver unbelievable value to, is that insight, that breakthrough, that transformation to do what they believe. But then when they speak to people, they go, well, it kind of is impossible. Like, and I want to get back to your definition about the creative. If you actually go to the original definition of what an entrepreneur is, it's taking something, an idea or whatever, and then creating greater value. It's taking something from nothing and creating value for it in the world. That's the original French definition of entrepreneur, if you go back and do your research. So you and I, because of who we are, and particularly with me with no education, no whatever, that's my whole life story.
Right.
I've had to come up with an idea, a thought, a way of asking a question to create value in the world. And now the whole world's my oyster, because in a question, I can make a transformation. I can create an insight that changes somebody's world from being stuck for years to within 3 hours having the greatest impact they've ever had in their business.
I love it. I love it. He said within 3 hours. That is wonderful. You know what that is? That is confidence.
Yes, it is. And that was, he was 99% there, Sharifah. This is interesting. How many entrepreneurs are we speaking to today that are 99% of the way to getting over the hump, and yet they can't get that 1%? You and me, this is what I tell people. I can guarantee I can get you to that 1%, because at 100%, boom, this is what happens.
Right.
Everything changes. Right. And this is what you do, Sharifah. You provide this to people in a question, in a conversation, and these type of formats. Super powerful.
I just like to talk to people about their limiting beliefs and their limiting mindsets. And so often when I'm speaking to guests, I'll notice things that they don't notice. And I don't look at it as positive or negative. I just look at it as it is what it is. I'll give you 2 quick examples. I had a guest this morning who was talking about her vision board, and part of her vision board, she had added F500. And she said she put that on there because that was a reminder for her that her business, her company was going to be a Fortune 500 company. And I said, well, why don't we knock off a couple of those zeros? Why not be F50 or F5? You know what I mean? Why not be the best? Why not be F1? I don't know. But even that number is limited. And then I had another guest who was talking about how he wanted to grow his business and how he wanted to increase his salary, and that he didn't need a lot of money. If he got $100,000 or $500,000 or even $1 million, he would be happy and he wouldn't squander it. And I'm like, $100,000? Why don't we go for 10 million? Why don't we, even when people use the word million and that M, I'm like, why don't we add a B? You know what I mean? Why can't we be billionaires? Why can't we go? And it's just the fact, I don't like limits. It doesn't make them bad or good. It's just the fact that don't limit yourself. Don't limit the possibilities of what you can be. Because so often we aim for just a little bit. Like me, myself, I was guilty. I'll go for the B or the C because the A was way too much work. And now in my life, I'm like, I'm not happy unless I have that A in my life and I'm going for the top. This has been a wonderful conversation. I have enjoyed it. Now, Scott, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching the show, whether live or in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today.
Yeah. First of all, I want them to take away the appreciation, the gratitude that I have for you, Sharifah, and for what you're doing and who you are, and just our connection. And, I think the shared vision that we have for ourselves and for our clients and all that is spectacular. The other thing is that I would say, if what Sharifah is saying and what I'm saying, and if it resonates with you, if it scares you a little bit, and if it makes you think things that, like Sharifah said, why say a million when you could say a billion? If that makes you uncomfortable, reach out to me. Reach out. I make this offer to you because you're Sharifah's people. I will invest an hour at no cost to you. You can go to our website, you can grab an hour with me, and I can guarantee you after an hour with me, your confidence and your belief, and I've been using this word lately because it's really resonated with me and with my clients, your bravery will go to another level. And you will get an insight or a breakthrough that you haven't had. And it doesn't take years, and it doesn't take months, and it doesn't take going to 50 workshops or reading 50 books or whatever. It takes me listening to you, asking you a question, and you having an insight that changes your whole future for the rest of your life. So that's my challenge. So if you've been moved in some way, I challenge you to come and have a conversation, and let's change your life and be that person that you're almost afraid of, that's inside of you. Let's let that out and let's go and change the world.
Absolutely. And where can people find you?
It's at confidencecoach.org. Confidencecoach.org. Get an appointment now. It's up in the corner. That will give you an hour. For that hour, I will turn myself inside out so that you get an insight, that you get a breakthrough, so that you can be your true identity, who you are, and go and do in the world what you're really called to do. And I will end with this. I believe in you and will be the least surprised person when you accomplish that before we even speak.
I think that is so powerful. I have enjoyed the conversation. If you're just now tuning in, you've missed the entire show. So go back to the beginning, rewatch it, because we have had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Scott Ballard. Scott, thank you for being today's guest. I also want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch the show. We definitely appreciate your support. We appreciate you for sharing the show. But as always, please don't just watch and share the show. Support our guests. Visit their websites. Reach out to them. And when you do, please let them know Sharifah Hardie says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on Ask Sharifah videocast and podcast, please visit my website at AskSharifah.com. Until next time, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.